Welcome back to BaldHeaded Metal, guys, and welcome back to another Bonded My Metal, a new name that I started kind of working around with. I thought it'd be a little bit more fitting for our channel here, where we talk about various topics about heavy metal. And this time around, with Andrew McKay Smith from Scars and Guitars podcast, we want to talk about just upcoming albums in 2022 that we both might be just be more excited about. Andrew, I'm going to be a gentleman here. I'm going to let you start. You can start it off and see what you got excited for here.
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas to everybody, and I hope everybody has a fantastic new year in 2022. Jesus Christ, it's got to be a bit better than what we've all experienced across the past 2 years with the COVID catastrophe. So, I hope you and yours had a great one and that you're looking forward to a great 2022 because the calendar is looking rather good, I think, for 2022 in terms of metal releases. Now, we can't confirm any of these releases, by the way, but they are scheduled for the calendar year.
Yeah.
So up the top, I'm going to talk about a couple of albums that I've already got in my collection. So I know for a fact they're going to be released via Nuclear Blast. They're in January and February or thereabouts. These couple of releases are coming out. But Fit for an Autopsy, Battle Beast, and there was one more in the mix there. Yeah, George Corpse Grinder Fisher from Cannibal Corpse. That's not on Nuclear Blast, but still, I know that one is coming out. His first solo album, Corpse Grinder. And I've got to say, of the three, it's that one I'm most looking forward to.
See, can you remind me what band he's originally from?
The Mighty Cannibal Corpse.
Cannibal Corpse. That's
and
what Monstrosity. I thought. Yeah, that was his the vocalist, right? Corpse Grinder is the vocalist.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Like I said, I'm going to check out Cannibal Corpse just because you recommended it to me. Because I think I checked out a couple albums you recommended to me and I already enjoyed them. And I discovered a couple actually this year. I didn't put in my list, like the new Asphyx album. Holy shit. The Massacre album you recommended to me was fantastic. But for the new year, what I'm looking forward to is a band a lot of people actually haven't heard of probably is Spartan, coming out of Greece. Or actually, I'm sorry, Holland. They come out of Holland, but it's about obviously Greek mythology. They had a couple of albums already, melodic death metal albums, and they have a new one coming out, I believe in January, February, of Kings and Gods. I really like some nice thrashing melodic death metal. Sounded great from this beginning band. It's only their third album. I'm excited for that one. Ashes of Aries. Anybody who's been on my channel knows how much I love Iced Earth, and Matt Barlow split to create Ashes of Aries, and it's their third album, Emperors and Fools, which I'm excited for. Battle Beast is another one we have in common here, but I actually don't know much about them. It's just based on what I've heard a couple of songs from, and I'm going to be diving into their discography, I think, over the new year. But I'm also excited just to check out something new in that old school power metal feel. And I'll give you one more because I have a bunch here. Is the new Saxon album, man. I'm gonna be looking for that. Carpe Diem.
New Saxon.
Yeah.
Yes. Indeed. Yeah. Look, Nura from Battle Beast is one of the most charismatic women in metal. Okay. She reminds me of a cross between Tatiana from Ginger and Doro. Okay. They're Finnish, Battle Beast. I think they're Finnish anyway. And look, I have had a chat to her, and she's a lovely person too. That always helps when you can have a chat to these people in our capacity as an indie podcaster, and you're able to, have a conversation and talk about other things outside of music, and then you can latch onto the music as a consequence, I think. But they've got that ABBA meets extreme metal thing going on. Great guitarists in that band there. Those guys know exactly what's happening. The other one too, and it's really not for everybody, I think, this one, Acoustic Adventures Volume 1 by Sonata Arctica. I had a conversation recently with the keyboard player. Now, I think that's going to throw a lot of people. What I said to the keyboardist, whose name, of course, I've forgotten, now I'm telling this story, but anyway, the keyboard player in Sonata Arctica, was that even though it's an acoustic album, it still sounds like a Sonata Arctica album.
I want to ask you something. I've known about Sonata Arctica for the past 10 years. I tried to give them a shot about 10 years ago. I've recently given them another shot on my channel to kind of check them out. And they just seem like, I don't mean to be really rude towards the band, but like the only comparison, they're like a less nuanced version of like Nightwish. They're not, for me, they felt like, unless I'm just checking out the wrong albums from them, they just felt like they just weren't on that level of Epica and Nightwish and all these other symphonic metal bands that they're so aspired to be like. But it just seems like just that little thing that sometimes that these bands have, it seems like for some reason, I think Sonata Arca is lacking.
They're nowhere near as dynamic as the bands you mentioned, that's for sure, Epica and Nightwish. And I think that comes down to the fact that they've got a male frontman. I've always said a female at the front of your band, you got the best of both worlds. They can sing like a dude, and they've got that wonderful presence that I think all metal fans have come to appreciate from women out the front. You know, those wonderful operatic vocals that they can switch on. Men can't do that. It's just that simple. Yeah. Tony Kakko, the singer, though, is extremely charismatic. He definitely stands on his own 2 feet. And he does his thing. The band, though, were very famous, I think, in metal circles, of course, for being this like a power metal band, and then they became more of a traditional heavy metal band, I think, and you had to go on that journey with them. I think they're an extremely capable outfit. They're certainly not a band that I'd listen to outside of the interview cycle. They're not a band that would fall neatly into my broader listening tastes, but I can absolutely respect them for what they do, first and foremost because they're great musicians, and also because I think Tony's a magnificent front man. And I think once you find a way to get into a band like I've just described there, I think that's a good way to sort of start with Sonata Arctica.
I also had a couple more albums. This is, again, just me checking up things from my channel's Amorphous, the new album they're going to have, Halo. Honestly speaking, it's not a band. I fully appreciate what they are and how talented they are, 100%. It's one of those bands, it's like, I realize the talent, but I'm not on board yet. And again, it's something I need to dive into their discography more, but I like checking out new things from bands, because just that new feeling, it might get you to jump into their older stuff as well. Actually, also, dude, Annihilator is releasing a new album this year.
Glad you brought this up.
Yeah. I love Jeff Waters, man. And then I might not like every Annihilator album, but something about it, I think, is just, he has a genuine love for music.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about Annihilator, I must say. And you know what? Because I'm an old fan. I'm talking 90s. And I'm talking the very early years. Alice in Hell.
Amazing album.
I had that on CD, not when it came out, a couple of years after it came out, and I converted it to tape and listened to it in my shitty beaten up Volvo. I listened to that album front to back. It's one of those albums that I can probably sing, not sing, because who can sing like Randy Rampage, but I know it back to front, and I just don't like the direction Jeff has taken the band in after the first 2 or 3 albums. That's my opinion. I've tried, believe me, and I find, because I still consider them very old school, it's so strange for me to hear much younger listeners get into them, because I always considered them one of those very much stuck in the 80s sort of bands.
100%.
But Jeff is... Yeah. And look, Jeff has done his thing, but it's a bit like the Dave Mustaine thing these days. It's the Jeff Waters show, whereas Megadeth is the Dave Mustaine show. Look, more power to him. I think he's an incredible riff writer. I think again, opinion here, I think he lost the ability to write a really good song many years ago.
I will say something that's probably even another hot take on Annihilator. As much as I'm looking forward to the new album, and I enjoyed some of the stuff they released, I will put them and say that they haven't really released a record as good as Alice in Hell ever after. That was their best record, the first one. And after that, it was a hill down. It was still good, and I enjoyed it, but they were never able to reach that same high, because Alice in Hell is like top thrash album kind of a conversation.
Absolutely.
And then everything after that was kind of like, oh, it's cool. I enjoy it. It's different. It has that kind of more simpler side of metal kind of sound in general, like Neverland or King of the Hill. I remember the 90s.
King of the Kill. King of the Kill. There were some really bad albums in the 90s. And that's the thing that disappointed me most, is I had fuck all money as a kid. And I bought those albums like King of the Kill, and there was a few other ones there, and they are not good thrash albums. Like they are. One of them even has a drum machine, and it sounds like a drum machine. It might be King of the Kill. And when he probably just needed to step away from music for a bit. And hey, artists can do whatever the hell they want, but as a fan, we're entitled to say what we need to as well. And I could have bought some Testament albums or Exodus albums rather than fucking what what Jeff was doing at that time, I think, and that sort of put me off, and that's probably where my well, what would you like it? That's what put me off Annihilator.
I got it. You know what? Another band I've been checking out is a Dagobah, which I think sounds interesting. It's like a melodic death metal band with synthesizers kind of in there mixed in, and their music videos have that cyberpunk feel. I am not 100% sold on the band yet. It's a young band. I think it's their first or second album. But I enjoy, first of all, I enjoy synthesized music. Besides heavy metal, like the other genres that I do enjoy, I love old school 80s synthesized music. And to combine that into heavy metal, the way like Beast in Black does, I think it's really cool. So I'll be checking them out with their new album By Night. And another band, I've discovered them on a live concert, and I could not believe how good they were live, was Sabaton. I want to check out their new album, The War to End All Wars. Man, I went to see Iced Earth, and I came away saying Sabaton was better live. And that happened every single time I saw Sabaton. They were phenomenal live, because Joachim's like performance and energy on stage was just so intoxicating that I just fell in love with the band. And recently discovered, actually, because people have been requesting me to react to it on the channel, man, World War II history, I would say World War history and war history mixed in with metal, mixed in with their energy, man, I'm on board.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. And I've got to say, Pa Sundstrom, he's one of the smartest guys I've ever spoken to, full stop. Forget about just the podcast or what have you, but the bassist manager for the band.
Yeah.
You know, when COVID hit, myself and the area manager for Nuclear Blast in Australia, John Howarth, we had a conversation with him. He was stuck in a Moscow hotel room. He couldn't get out, but he was still managing the band from that Moscow hotel room.
Jesus.
You know, and he's just a very calm, measured individual. He's the sort of guy that if you were running a band, you'd love to have him in it. And he said something to me then about what he looks for people. And I asked him in bands. So I said, if you had some advice for young bands, and they come to you and say, give me your best piece of advice. He said something along the lines of, bring people into your band that look far more forward to being on stage than what happens backstage afterwards. And I thought, man, that's it. Right,
that's smart. So that's smart words, yeah.
The drinking, the drugging, the carrying on, the women, all the rest of it. You know, if that happens, so be it. But that's not the event. The event is you're putting on a show for the people. Understand where your money's coming from. That's what I took from that.
100%. You know, a couple more albums we mentioned that's vaguely being, I think, written, and I think we're both interested in these, is the new Creator album and the new Megadeth album. How do you feel about just the new material from those bands? Because I think you might have an idea how I feel about Megadeth, but I don't think we have talked about Creator on this channel so far.
Well, Creator are all time. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, Creator, we've sort of touched on Creator from the perspective that I don't feel as though they've had I don't feel like they've had a creative low ebb, but plenty of fans do. Endorama and some of those albums in the 90s. I liked them. I got into them back in those days. I could understand that there was a bit of industrial stuff creeping in, a bit of goth even starting to creep in. But these days, they're a roll gold thrash superpower. And no, they've got, what's the bassist name? He's in, not going to make any sense now, of course, doesn't want to say that, but they've got the French bassist, who's the guitarist. He's got a couple of other bands, Sinsanum, with Joey Jordison. Anyway, they've got the right personnel in that band to continue being a thrash superpower, a force. I have no doubt that whatever Miller Petroza decides to bring to the people is going to be superb, because that's just who he is. He knows what he's doing behind that guitar when he's singing. So I haven't heard any of it yet, but based on their recent output, I just think they're going to continue that run of knocking it out of the park.
I agree with you. And I got into them in that Endorama Outcast era as well, and that Violent Revolution. I think those three albums really kind of hooked me into the band. And I've come to love their later part of their career. I mentioned that before, later part of their career more than their earlier. Because Terrible Certainty, Renewal, and like Pleasure to Kill, they're all good albums, but it's just that technicality and how good they've only gotten more technical, and I think and just better of combining melodic and thrashy elements, evolving thrash, so it doesn't sound like that same old school 80s sound. They sound great to me, but when talking about Megadeth, it's completely the opposite. I'm like, man, if they release a half decent album, I'll be happy. Because at this point, sure as shit, he's not going to innovate. and he's been doing this kind of thrash and roll that he calls it. Megadeth is like, for me, just like Metallica's, and it's on its last legs, and that's not a disrespect to the band. It's just they've done their job. Rust in Peace, Injustice for all these albums, they've done their due, what they needed to do in their time, and they'll always be classic albums. But I think their time on the top is kind of done, and it's time for newer bands, and I would say better bands, to kind of see the light. But I'm still going to be hopeful. Maybe there's going to be something interesting to see with Megadeth.
Yeah, look, we talked about it a bit before we got on the show, and Dave shared some material from the album with a fan by Cameo, and the fan decided that he wanted to leak it to, the clickbait media sites, and I don't like that sort of stuff. But from what I heard,
that's a dick move, yeah.
It's a dick move. I mean, just Dave. I'm not a huge fan of Dave. I think he's a genius songwriter, and he's the architect of thrash. There you go. I don't think I can give a bigger shout out of praise to the man than that. He's the chief architect of thrash metal. He's the man. He's the one who put the speed in Metallica. And his guitar playing, Kerry King said it, he never forget when he walked into a club and he saw Dave Mustaine shredding and riffing like this and looking off into another corner of the room. The guy's a genius, but has he lost his, a bit like Jeff, has he lost his ability to write a good song? Yeah, it's not there anymore. As an old fan, I
think it's fire, right? You can't maintain the fire all your life. You can't maintain that love that you had in the beginning, or the aggression you had in the beginning that helped fuel your music. You can't maintain it your whole life. I wouldn't fault him for it at all.
No, it's the great musicians in the band. I don't agree with what happened there with David Ellison, but David shouldn't have been stupid enough to put himself in that position to begin with. So I understand Dave's perspective on that, Dave Mustaine's perspective on that. I hope it's James Lomenzo that's the bassist in the band, James from White Lion and Pride and Glory, moving forward, because he's such a great fit for the outfit. You kind of want to see them out there, but I'm like you, mate. I'm out. I checked out. I got to say though, I checked out of them decades ago.
They sound amazing live. I saw them recently live. They sound amazing. I'm still gonna go to like Megadeth concerts, but new albums. Because for me, the best era of Megadeth was Nick Menza, Marty Friedman, Dave Ellison, and Dave Mustaine. That was the best era of Megadeth.
Yeah. It's I've seen Megadeth a couple of times, and I've got to say, in each occasion they've played a virtually identical set list that, of course, ends with the crescendo of Holy Wars, and I'm over it. I mean, look, a bit like Annihilator. Look, I Rust in Peace was similar. Rust in Peace, I listened to front to back. I listened to Rust in Peace so much back in the day. I put it on a mixtape just to mix up the order to make it more interesting again. That's how big a fan I was. But that was the 90s, and as I say, I love Dave for his contribution, and I appreciate that there are a whole heap of young fans that are getting into them. But I'm very similar to you from the perspective that young fellas and young ladies, there are heaps of other great young bands out there like Battle Beast. Check them out.
Yeah. What other albums are you looking forward to though? Like beyond the
probably the biggest one. Yeah, probably the biggest one on my horizon is Blood Incantations' new one titled Time Wave Zero. Have you heard of Blood Incantation before?
I've always heard the name. Again, never jumped into them yet.
They are the distilled essence of what Chuck Schuldiner was trying to do. This is a band.
Okay, I need to write this down.
Yeah, Blood Incantation. Unbelievable. Like, I mean, I'm just getting goosebumps talking about what those guys do. And I've had a chat to Morris Kolontrowski from the group before, and they're the real deal. Anybody who has yet to check out Blood Incantation, if you love death metal, these guys are I'm serious when I say this. These guys are the spiritual successor to Chuck Schuldiner. Okay? The torch has been handed over. People just were looking in the other direction, but they're here. Plus, they've got this otherworldly cosmic thing going on. They've got some of the greatest video clips that I've seen from a death metal band ever. Please do check them out. I mean, this new album, I haven't heard any of it, but after my conversation with Morris, that whole band is the real deal. They are not going to let anybody down. If you're a fan of that sort of stuff, they're not going to take a left turn. They are so serious about what those guys do. And as a musician, I can tell that when I look at their live performances as well. They are just fall to the floor and more, those guys. So that'd be the album that's on my horizon as being the most look forward to. I think I haven't pre-ordered it yet, but I'm going to get the vinyl just because, I not even know what it sounds like. I'm going to pre-order the vinyl.
Yeah, support the band. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you though, this still relates to our current year, is you first recommended me to check out Massacre from our top 10 albums of the year, and I checked it out, was blown away how good it was. And then based on that, I had a happy accident where on YouTube Music, I was recommended, it's like, if you like Massacre, check out the band Asphyx from Netherlands. And then I turned on their new album from 2021, and I heard like Bolt Thrower inspired death metal with their own sound kind of infused in there as well. Because they've also been around as long as Bolt Thrower. And Bolt Thrower is my favorite death metal band of all time. Man, I went through the whole discography over the weekend. That's how obsessed I got and how good I was kind of jumped in there. As well as I kind of recommended, I think, a couple albums to you from that Tim Ripper Owens project. That was a KK.
Yes, nice.
Hopefully you enjoyed that. But what I was going to say, another albums I'm looking forward to this year is, in this one, I'm 50-50 because sometimes they release something really good. Sometimes they release something that's just kind of boring, and that's Dark Funeral. They're releasing a new album this year. I love me some black metal. I love me some old school Norwegian black metal. We'll have to see if it's good. And actually, again, a band probably most people are not going to know about is Capricorn. They only released 2 albums in the 90s. It was a thrash metal kind of an act, and they're releasing a new album. I'm not very hopeful because most of the time when this band released 2 albums in the 90s, they take a 20-year hiatus, try to release a new album. It's usually not good. But hey, fingers crossed because I like those albums.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, but the Massacre one, I'm definitely on the Cam Lee train, as we say, because he just does not get his due. People don't realize he's the guy who brought the death metal vocal style into the rehearsal room that Chuck Schuldiner was in, and it shifted from being this sort of quasi death thing to a full on death thing. He's the one who made death metal sound like death metal from a vocal perspective. He's the original gangster, and I've had a very long conversation with him about it. You know, he's on the fence about some of the reasons why his contribution has been marginalised, but I'll let anybody check out what those reasons could be. But some of them are very discouraging, I've got to say. He talks about Chuck too. Sorry, I know this is a bit of an aside, but Chuck was a bit of a mummy's boy, and I think he's been deified like Kurt Cobain and Randy Rhoads have been. He's been deified too, but he was a human being with quite a few faults too, it turns out. So I mean, that goes without saying. We all do. But look, I digress. Another album that I'm very much looking forward to is Tosin Abasi and the lads in Animals as Leaders, with Parhesia, I think the name of the album is. Now, I saw them live in 2017 or 18, and magnificent. Tosin Abasi, take a bow. I don't usually like djent stuff, I must say, but I think the way it works is it's more like a jazz djent thing going on, and that band, they just seem to be able to, perform in a manner unlike any other band at this point in time. So I'm very much looking forward to what Tosin comes up with there.
Is it akin to what Ginger is doing now also with their sound as well?
More jazzy, far more jazzy, far more a lot of polyrhythms, a lot of things that don't necessarily make sense if they're isolated, but together they just sound unbelievable. Plus a lot of melody too. The thing I love jazz, I really do, but some of the issue with jazz sometimes is that there's a melody you cannot follow. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like it's like you can hear it's melodic, but it's more jerky. And with Tosin, songwriting in metal is so important. We've touched on it a couple of times now, and he can write too. So technical ability and the ability to write a nice tune that you can listen to in the car.
My problem actually is with, I'll say something that I've said on my channel. I know it's going to sound crazy to you. I've never liked jazz. I've tried improvisational and like all various types of jazz. I just, for some reason, with exactly the way you described this chaos within it is the reason why I can't get into jazz. And blues, on the other hand, very easy for me to get into. And that's why I think partially why I had so much trouble trying to get into Ginger and appreciate them is that same chaos that's within the band, where I'm like, well, where's the tune? Where's that melody that kind of hooks you in and grabs you? And it doesn't have it because it's not that accessible. It requires you to kind of sit down and enjoy that, like Meshuggah, weird, absolutely weird style of songwriting from Meshuggah. And I'm like, I just cannot understand why people enjoy this band. I understand why they like it, but I can't, like, I can't, I'm like, am I stupid? Is there something wrong with me? Why can't I like Meshuggah? Everybody likes them.
Yeah, Meshuggah, yeah. I remember the first time I heard them, I was like, what on earth is going on here? And one thing became apparent was their influence was immediate back in the early 90s. And, then when they released Chaos Fear after that, it was all over. Every man and his dog seemed to be influenced by them, including Tosin Abasi. I mean, Meshuggah invented Gent as far as I'm concerned. Some edgelord is going to tell me there was some band who was playing it 20 years beforehand. I don't think they were, to be honest with you. I think Frederick Thorndale, the great guitar master, he's just John Coltrane and Miles Davis heavy metal. It's not too big a jump to see that as far as I'm concerned. Having seen them live and watched his fingers, that shit's jazz, man. That's modal scales and stuff that he's doing, but it's doing it in this set of polyrhythmic, and it's this weird, I don't know, offbeat thing that they do, and I don't know how they do it. I really don't. When I look, Meshuggah, one of the bands that I truly enjoy that I don't understand.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I've always thought about when I've heard Ginger, and people would tell me that there's nobody like Ginger out there ever. And I'm like, well, I've heard a band like it from the 90s. Like, there's no way. I'm like, you ever heard of Atheist? And funny enough, Atheist is releasing a new album in 2022.
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, Atheist is one of those bands, guys. Like, if you want some jazz infused death metal that's really fucking experimental, check out especially their album Time. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. Well, Atheist had one of the greatest bass players of all time from any genre in the band, Roger Patterson, the long departed Roger Patterson. He died in 1991. There's one live video out there featuring Roger Patterson's playing, and that's something else. Like, he's similar to Steve DiGiorgio, very different because he's playing. I don't think he's playing with the pick. I think he's playing with the fingers, but he's playing a Rickenbacker, I think, which is a horrible bass in my opinion. Like, someone playing metal, because it's clunky. It's more like Beatles doom doom doom, this sort of shit, But he's running that stuff big time. But yeah, Atheist, that'll be interesting. They're not a band, I've got to confess, outside of the first two albums that I've truly sort of checked out. And then another heavy hitter has got a release coming out. I just want to make sure that this isn't a re-release, but I don't know way of telling at the moment. But Hammerfall, Hammer of the Dawn. I haven't been following them for many years, but to me, they were one of the original power metal bands. They popularized it. I'm talking the modern sense of it. Okay, I know there were bands like Virgin Steel and shit back in the 80s and stuff, but Hammerfall, when they came out, they had some classic albums. I know Renegade was re-released last year, meaning 2021. This year, I mean. They just have that sound, like a particular sound, don't they? So whilst I'm not a huge fan of power metal or even what Hammerfall do, I appreciate what they do. So I'm sort of eager to check that out in some respects.
Another name, always heard, never checked out, but I think I should. There's certain bands, you should check them out, but you've never got around to doing them, like sort of like Halloween, which I want to dive into. I'm a little bit intimidated where to start. But another band, again, I love thrash. I think they're releasing one album this year. They've been in the works to come, the resurgence of this band, Dark Angel. They're supposed to have this resurgence, and they're supposed to release a new album. Hopefully it's going to come this year. I remember their album Time Does Not Heal, when it was released in the 90s. It was the tagline was, it has the most amount of riffs. It has 230 riffs on this album. And that was the thing, is how much they changed up their songs. And I remember not being very catchy. As a matter of fact, most people I showed it to would turn them off because they're weird. Sort of like Atheist, sort of like Meshuggah and Ginger. They're weird and not easy to get into, but I think they're worth the time. And I'm hoping, as a thrash aficionado, that this album comes out and it stays in that same vein, even if it's a little hard to digest.
Yeah, they're a hard listen. I agree with you. And look, I've spoken to Gene, haven't spoken to him about this point, but yeah, they're massively influential as well, to the point where Metallica ripped them off with One. I can't remember the name of the tune.
You reminded me, Gene Hogan is from there, of course.
Yeah. Darkness Descends has a song which sounds, and it came out not years, but it came out before And Justice for All. But Metallica absolutely heard that album and went, "Hey, we might borrow this." It's too close. But in that way, metal borrows from itself. Meaning that, like, hey, it's a great honor to Dark Angel for Metallica to rip them off, in my opinion, and it should actually send people their way. And I don't think the guys in the band give a shit, by the way, either. But there's another one of the Angels, Death Angel. They had a like, I don't know, what was it, a covers album, something like that they released this year, and next year apparently they've got a new one. So we'll see how that one there goes. They've always been kind of like the rock thrash band for my taste. Like they've always been a very sort of straightforward thrash band that has a lot of rock influences.
I'll tell you, man, I tried really hard. I don't like Death Angel. So something about them is just, I can't put my finger on it. I never liked. I've tried their early albums, I've tried their mid albums, I've tried their later albums. There's nothing that ever captured me in their music. And that, again, I understand people love them and swear by them, and that's something to take into account. You can't dismiss a band's legacy just because you don't like it, but it's definitely not for me.
Yeah, I love them as a kid. I haven't listened to them much as an adult.
Yeah.
Awesome guys, though. When you have a chat to them, these guys are very down to earth. Like they know what's going on. They're a Bay Area original as well.
Yeah.
These people know this, but they started out when they were 14 or 15 or something like that. They were signed. The other one,
you know what a problem I noticed a lot of people have, I think maybe with both of us, is when you say it's not for me, they think you're saying it's bad. And I want to clarify that I can have a total respect and love for a band and say they're absolutely not for me. And I feel like sometimes people understand what I'm saying. Sometimes people take very offense to, they take offense to it. That happened a lot with Ginger, actually. I'm like, hey, I don't think they're as special as everybody say they are, and I don't think they're particularly for me. But that's not a disrespect to the band, because obviously there's millions of people around the world that love them. So it's just probably that plug doesn't connect into my socket.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember as a kid when people used to play out on Faith No More, I'd be like, oh, shit, this sort of thing. But, who gives a shit? I mean, we're more than allowed to have an opinion about things. Yeah. It's what keeps metal alive and vibrant. Plus, it's a democratic right to do so. So people come on the journey. There's probably bands that we love that people listening hate. So, and watching.
Iced Earth, man. I can't tell you how many people shit on Iced Earth since I started my channel. I love that band. With all the craziness.
Well, yeah, where to start with those guys? Jesus. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, I'm all for politics being part of music, but I think there is a line. And what's his name? Sorry, I can't remember his name. Not Matt Barlow. What's the guitarist's name?
John Schaefer. John
Schaefer. He crossed the line, man. I mean,
literally.
I don't know. I mean, he must have a trust fund or something, because, I mean, you've still got to earn money and do everything else for the rest of your life, just for those one insane moments you get caught up in, But I digress, because let's talk about Ozzy Osbourne. Now, I checked out decades ago with Ozzy at this point in time, maybe not decades, but, he's one of the reasons I love metal. Got into Jake's playing back in the day on The Ultimate Sin and Bark at the Moon, and still listen to those albums. Love Jake's playing, love Ozzy's accompaniment to it, but the guy should stop, really. I mean,
I'm glad you said that. That's what I was going to say.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know why Sharon does it. She brings him out every couple of years to record an album with with some rapper's producer or something, with Duff McKagan on bass and Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers on drums, as it was the last album. I haven't even, I have listened to snippets of the last album, didn't like it. It's lost the feel. There is no Aussie sound anymore. There's just whoever he's working with and his voice over the top of whatever fucking music that they're playing. And as an old fan, I just want to say, you've done, Ozzy, you're the Godfather. You've done enough. Okay, leave it.
I think everything from Perry Mason is probably the last album that was really, I'm trying to remember the name of the album. Yeah. That was the last album. Osmosis, yes. Yeah. I think that was the last album that was really great from Ozzy. And then from that point on, it's like they bring him out of a crypt or out of the nursing home for a couple of months to record a session and put him back in there. It's just kind of sad to see your idols fall apart like that.
It is. He's done far too much drugs, and he's led the life of Brian or Larry for decades beforehand, mate. And it's really taken that toll on him. And he's probably only been kept alive because of his vast wealth and access to health enablers or whatever, medical facilities or what have you at the moment. But it's just not. I don't like seeing him out there.
Yeah.
He looks. The last time I saw him was 2008, and he was gone back then. He was a full beat behind the rest of the band in parts. Mike Borden you could hear him from Faith No More slowing down just to sort of allow Ozzy to sort of catch up in parts. And that would have been difficult because Mike must have had a click track in, and you could hear him just sort of just edge off the beat just to allow Ozzy to understand where his place was in the song. And it was one of the rare gigs that I wish I didn't go to, because it actually changed my opinion of Ozzy, I've got to say. 2008, Brisbane Entertainment Centre. Wasn't good. Zach had a really
I've heard
bad
about that with Meatloaf as well.
Oh, Meatloaf! Holy shit!
Yeah.
Look, Meatloaf, I don't think he's performed since the AFL Grand Final in 2011, if I'm mistaken. I mean, it was anybody really out there wants to see probably. I mean, it's actually really, as a rock fan and metal fan, you watch that and you're like, my God, you're watching someone just disintegrate in front of you.
And again, I have a lot of love for Meatloaf. I love his early albums, Bat Out of Hell, and oh my God.
Yeah,
he was definitely a hero when I was younger, trying to get into heavy metal. He was a hero, and it's like, again, it's sad to see some of your heroes kind of fall apart. But I will tell you something. What I am looking forward to this year, sometimes even more than new albums, is to discover bands that I either pass me by, I haven't discovered before, just by, there's so much sheer things out there, whether it be conversations with you, recommendations from people, which have been really helpful, to discover new bands. That's what I'm looking forward to the most, is to discover something I haven't heard before that's really like Asphyx grabbed me. And I'm like headbanging down the street, in the train, every single place I go, I need to listen to a new album. I want that feeling again. And Asphyx definitely gave it to me. And I'm hoping that in 2022, there'll be some discovery that will give me that same feeling.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because just over this last sort of 2 weeks, or last week for me anyway, just having some time off, one band of course I knew about them and remember a few songs from there was one song on the Last Action Hero soundtrack from Queensryche.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I started to get into them recently, and I sort of feel like I've got a lot of albums to catch up on now, particularly because of Jeff Tate's vocal. He's just fantastic. There's that song, Silent Lucidity, which is a ballad. I get that. But, man, you can't knock songwriting chops like Chris DeGarmo has. That guy's a monster, their guitarist. And paired with Jeff Tate, holy moly. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I love getting into bands that have been around for years and you sort of ignored them or haven't acknowledged them, and then all of a sudden you find this one song that allows you it opens up that universe for you.
100%. And I think we've talked about is being wise enough to say to yourself, maybe this is not the song, or maybe this is not the album, but let me give it another chance. Because sometimes sometimes it's a grower. And I've noticed the bands that I tend to just stay with me the longest sometimes are a lot of the times are growers. They take time.
Hey, I think Ghost have got a new album coming out next year. What are your thoughts?
Not a fan. I think they are a interesting band. The whole get up and everything that they have can't get it. I've noticed also between the two of us, I noticed a lot of traditional metal bands from your side that came out of, with like Tim Ripper Owens and all that kind of stuff. I tend to be, despite my very calm demeanor, and that's why I stay this calm, is I love me some just violent, loud, aggressive death metal, black metal, thrash metal. I want my ears to be destroyed by the time I finish listening to an album. So I actually don't gravitate towards. I like heavy metal. I like traditional. I like new wave of British heavy metal, in power metal, but in less quantity. I'm very picky when it comes to those genres. Like Queensryche, never been a fan. I respect them. I know their legacy, just never got into them. And I know it in some ways it does make me more closed-minded. Maybe perhaps it's because I'm younger. My brother always says that's the reason. It's like, you're young, still got all that crazy energy. Like when it comes out of you, you'll eventually get there. I don't know. I think I like that aggressive sound, man.
I'm with you. I got to say, I bought a Ghost vinyl, sold a Ghost vinyl. I'm on the fence overall. I love the satanic imagery and the themes. I like the fact that they're singing stuff that sounds like it could be on an FM radio at 10 p.m. at night. A bit more laid back, but still very poppy. And they're singing about their love of Satan or whatever it might be. I love that juxtaposition, if you like. But it's not really sort of music that I choose to listen to longer. If it's on, it's on. but I'll never put it on. And that's the way I sort of look at them. And I don't know what are your feelings about King's X are, but they're one of my all-time favorite bands. Doug Pinnick and the lads.
Never heard of them. Another
King's
band.
X. Yeah,
King.
they've been around, very much a musician's band. Probably not a band that I'd say that you get into just based on what I understand about your tastes are, but
Yeah.
the ultimate musician's band is King's X. So they've got one coming out, and I see that
I'm sure we're gonna have a
potentially,
lot of surprises because you know how bands announce their albums maybe a couple months away, and then out of nowhere you get, holy shit, they're releasing a new album. Hopefully Sodom releases a new album because I love Decision Day, the last album that they released. I would like to hear something from. I'm trying to think of some of the bands. I'll tell you right now. I would like to hear another album from Pessimist, which is a thrash metal album, I believe,
nice.
from out of
Yeah.
Germany, if I'm correct. I know Chris Youn is coming out with a new album in 2020.
Really?
They have one single already. And I like their later part of their career where they kind of slowed down a little bit and became a little bit more technical. They just didn't go for speed because when they just started that Brazilian aggression, they just went for pure speed. They slowed down a little bit.
Band, Christian. Yeah,
I love them.
Good.
I'm trying to think of another one. There's actually a couple albums I have to check out. I don't know if I'll be able to in this week that are from a couple of years ago that I didn't know would release. Like Arsis, they released a new album.
Who's that? Sorry,
Arsis. I believe it's an American death metal band.
and okay, no, yeah.
They have a very weird style of playing and sound production. It took me a little bit to get into, but they have a unique sound. I first saw them live when I went to see Exodus back in 2007. They, Warbringer, Gold Whore, and this band Arsis were the ones to open for Exodus. So it was really, really cool.
I'm gonna throw a curveball at you quickly. Slipknot apparently have got a new one out.
Yeah, we can pass by this one very quickly.
Yeah,
Slipknot is just like, I want to see. It's like Korn, Slipknot, all these like new metal era bands. I want to be respectful towards them, but I just don't get it. I don't
get it either. No, I don't get it either. I'm just not. I actually saw. I made a point back in the day when they first broke. They toured Australia at the end of 1999, or I think it was January year 2000. Went and saw them. Everybody around me was going batshit mental for them, and I remember just going, "I'm getting a beer." Look, as somebody who was into all of the death metal and black metal bands at the time, like the real, sorry, but the real shit. And I know the guys in Slipknot are influenced by that stuff. I'm not hating on Slipknot at all. I'm simply talking about the music. I just looked at it as noisy shit. And yeah, it was as a noisy rabble. But I remember my thought at the time was, this just, honestly, I felt like an old man, and I was about 20 at the time. I remember looking around and saying, this is happening in front of me. I'm an old man now because I don't get this.
Yeah.
This just sounds like noise, and I don't think much has changed. There's too much banging on drums of oil and stuff, tin cans and stuff. And their whole career sounds like St. Angus sped up.
It's like, and you'll put somebody like Nile next to them, and to an untrained ear, they're going to listen to it, and they'll say basically they're both noise. Where I think once you dive deeper into something like Nile, and you start hearing the rhythms and how they're changing scales and how they're doing all these things, and the songwriting and the intricacy of solo playing. Slipknot, I think Corey Taylor is a smart guy, and he definitely knows what the hell he's doing. He's created music for a certain type of people that enjoy that kind of style. But I know it's just not for me. I like interesting hooks and songs. I like interesting riffs and songs. Something I mention a lot actually is a lot of bands might have interesting things going on in a song, but I always like that old school feeling of like an 80s or a 90s song where something just hooks you. I'm like, I really love when the chorus comes around, with Slipknot, every song except for Devil and I was the only song I liked from them. I'm like you. I'm like, this is noise. I don't enjoy what's happening. I'll listen to System of a Down, the only new metal era song, a band that I really like. System of a Down did some interesting stuff, I think. Especially their first album, I thought was great. But other than that, no interest in them. I won't hate on them.
No.
Like Korn, I won't hate on them. I know people like them. But whatever. It's like, for me, it's like, let's go, keep going.
Yeah, I just look. I've even got a couple of their albums. Their first two weren't too bad. I was sort of curious getting into them, and I thought the first and second album weren't too bad. But hey, let's talk about Watain. When you got a band like Watain, why would you listen to Korn? in my opinion, are completely different. I get that, Swedish black metal, but Watain are now with Nuclear Blast, so I think they're on a label now that'll probably get them to the next level, that next tier, in terms of distribution and onto playlists and the like. But Watain were just magnificent live when I saw them in 2019. So the Swedish Satanic Elite, I can't wait for their new material. I really can't. So
I
hopefully
tried.
I'll get.
Again,
Oh,
another
you
band.
didn't?
I tried to give them a chance. I couldn't. I don't know if it was the sound, the production, because like especially the older extreme metal acts, they all have this kind of shittier production, and some people purposely try to create that shittier production. I couldn't get into it. And what happened to me, and that I remember in that same time and era, I got into Primordial. So I just kind of switched from one to
Irish
the other.
band. Yeah, they're a good band. Yeah, they're a great band, actually. Yeah.
Was it In the Nameless God? I think was one of their albums that I was completely hooked when I heard it, because I just enjoyed that interesting song progression that they had.
Apparently, Obituary have got a new one out too. I mean, this is just to clarify for people. We're looking at a list here of prospects. Nothing has been confirmed yet in terms of releases. So sorry, you go.
With Obituary, man, I gotta get into them, because that's I think in many ways Bolt Thrower even got their sound, or at the very least were inspired by. I have to get into Obituary, and I've tried about at this point maybe 6 times.
Once they bite, one thing I'll say to you is, once the Obituary bug bites, once you understand what Trevor Perez does on guitar, it's over. Though you will listen to them for months on end. They're that good, because they don't use double kick drumming and stuff. It's more like a rock format.
I'll tell you, somebody I discovered only maybe a couple of days ago, a couple of songs, and they're completely not in the style of songs that I like, but their attitude is infectious, even if it's poppy. You ever heard of The Warning?
Heard of it, never heard the band.
It's 3 young Mexican girls that started this kind of a band, started on YouTube, and they do more of a rock and roll, rock / some metal-ish sound in there. But for some reason, their attitudes, like they're young girls, you can tell it's very poppy. It's more, you can say commercial or radio-friendly music, but they have the right attitude. They have the spirit of the music in there. And the accessibility marker that you can put on top of this band doesn't detract from them in any kind of way. So I'll be actually interested to check out their new material as they release through the year, which is, I think, become an interesting thing with very young bands who start on YouTube, is instead of releasing a full album, is they release songs one after the other when they write them. And when they have enough, right, they create this album, which is an interesting format to create new material.
Yeah, I've talked a lot about that with some of the younger bands that I talk to on the podcast, the younger musicians, and it's really all about Spotify playlists at that level, and YouTube music too, whatever it might be called. But it's all playlist driven, you see. And so if you release an album, what's the song you listen to off that? At a certain point, I've got to say, and as I say, I've expressed this philosophy at length on the podcast, albums are done. And that doesn't mean I don't like listening to them, or I don't want to hear the new Behemoth album. I absolutely do, but I'm talking about with a certain audience, they're done. So I think it's just a fracturing of the way we consume music, if you like. And a bit like there were some punk bands back in the day that only ever brought out 7 inches. They never released albums. I couldn't tell you one off the top of my head now, but became legends in the process. But I know there were a bunch that did that sort of stuff and are big in that scene. It's just multiplied exponentially like that right across the music scene at the moment. So it doesn't surprise me that young people in particular are forming bands, playing on YouTube, blowing up, and have no intention to potentially release an album. They just release single after single.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a fan and you really want to support them, you'll just buy the album, you will get their t-shirts, you'll go out to see them in concert, you'll support them in any way that you can do it. And I think that's wonderful that they're just able to create music and people are discovering them. And to see their, like, I don't know if you ever heard of Liliac.
Heard of them, but not heard the music.
Yeah, again, also very young band, heavily inspired by Dio. I mean, she has all the mannerisms of Dio, and she has this raspiness in her voice. She's 20-something years old. She has this raspiness in her voice. She sounds wonderful. You can tell how much she loves Ozzy and Dio. I'm like, just to see the young generation love this music and truly embrace it, not because their daddy told them or because it's a cool thing to do, is because they love it. That energy to me is infectious, and that for that reason alone, I want to check them out.
Indeed, yeah, yeah. Look, there's a lot of really looking at the prospects, the releases that are potentially on the radar. You know, Behemoth, Belphegor, Blind Guardian, Broken Hope.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not a
Blind
fan of
Guardian. We didn't
Broken Hope.
mention Behemoth. I love their later stuff that they've been releasing. I love Nergal stuff that he's been doing, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Belfangor, to me, it's like they're okay. They have a couple of good songs.
Oh yeah, I quite like. Got to say, I quite like Belphegor.
Really?
Although Helmet doesn't do interviews, which is interesting. So I remember, he's one of the only people that have agreed to do a an email interview. You know, you send them questions and they come back. I generally don't like that. I think artists have got to interact, but he probably doesn't care anyway.
He's a little too serious when I've seen him live. He doesn't kid out of character.
Agreed. No, I know, but I think I think that's him though. I think that's just how he is. I don't think he's an act. I think some of them you sort of like, yeah, you're putting it on a little bit, you know, they're leering at the audience and stuff. I think with Helmet, he's deadly serious about what he does. See, Eric Danielson, you can talk to him very easily from Watain.
Yeah.
He's a born communicator. I'm not saying he's like Danny Filth. He's very different to Danny Filth, but I remember talking to him. We had a joke that Watain beat one of the ABBA members in the charts, and we had a joke, and I said, did you tell your parents that, you know, like, he's Swedish, right? So did you tell your parents that you're bigger than ABBA for a moment? And he goes, sort of. It was one of the only relatable things that I could talk to them about my band. So, you know, so he could see the humor in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But one of my old favorites, Coroner, they've got an album potentially on the horizon as well.
Wolves in the Throne Room.
Wolves in the Throne Room got one coming out, have they?
Yeah.
Let me see, what else have we got here? There's some of the more mainstream shit like Godsmack, which I wouldn't listen to, but anyway, people might want to know they've got one coming out. Apparently, Machine Head have got one coming out as well.
Yeah, I have a love and hate relationship with the Machine Head. I think their first album is their best, and then they have some good stuff throughout their career, but they have the potential for that amazing thrash metal band, but they choose to go for a more commercial sound. And that's at least what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I didn't like it when he threw Phil Anselmo under the bus when he went and did that big public statement after Phil Anselmo fucked up those years ago, because I think Phil knew that he didn't need somebody calling him out for it, you know.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to Phil, I didn't bring that up or anything like that, but that really put me off listening to Rob, because it's virtue signaling.
Yeah, he did a whole song right about him, specifically attacking him.
Is that, yeah, I didn't even know about the song, but I remember the anybody can check this shit out. It made Blabbermouth and all the other clickbait sites, but it was ridiculous. You know what I mean? I mean, the video's there. You don't need to add anything. You don't need to weigh in, you know, I mean, so that really, I was sort of on the fence before that. And then after that, I was like, even if an interview opportunity came up with Rob, I wouldn't do it, because I don't appreciate people doing that stuff. If you've got a problem, pick up the phone and talk to him. I mean, they mix in the same bloody circles, for God's sakes, being two of the biggest heavy metal icons of the since the 90s, you know. Yeah. So it's not like it wouldn't be hard. But anyway, their first album, great. Everything else, maybe More Things Change, is pretty good too. And the Black,
I would agree with that.
That was it. 3 albums. Everything else, whatever.
You know who's supposed to release a new album? I think it's also the city. It's in the works. Another thrash act coming back is Violence.
Yeah, I've seen that actually. Yeah, Phil Demmel, who was in Machine Head. Yeah,
that's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't mind some of their stuff, but they're a bit like Queensryche, I suppose. Definitely know them, know what they sound like, know some of their songs, just haven't got into it yet. Yeah, maybe that time will come, you know. We also got Soilwork. Apparently, God, I don't know how Bjorn in that band, Strid, I don't know how he keeps on top of everything, because he has a release out every year, whether it's Soilwork or Night Flight Orchestra.
No, never been a fan of Soilwork either. I didn't like that poppy melodic death metal Guttenberg sound I think they were doing, right, with In Flames at the same time.
Very accessible death metal.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I just, something about it was just turned me off. Especially I was very much in the Elitist at that time when they were really popular in the 2000s. And now I'm just like, well, I have so many other bands. A lot of times also what happens with me is I push bands to the side, is not because they're bad. It's like, I have so many other bands to listen to and check out. Why would I go to this band?
I'm with you. Yeah, I know exactly the point you're making there, and I've done that so often with bands that like Dismember, for example. They've got an album coming out next year apparently, and by all rights, there should be a band that I should have been into for 30 years by now, but I can honestly tell you I haven't checked them out hardly at all.
Yeah. Why you could listen to Obituary.
Mate, I mean, how many hours are there in the day, for God's sakes? I mean, you could
Yeah.
respect all of the bands because they're all rock and metal bands we're talking about, but it's whether or not they make we buy the CD as a kid or whatever. But another fella with a new one coming out, I'm a bit on the fence with his work, I've got to say, is Devon Townsend.
I have this absolutely with Strapping Young Lad, right? I'm absolutely on the fence about this guy, always. I think he's extremely talented guy. He can sing, he can growl, he can do whatever he wants his voice, he can play the guitar like a master, but I don't like his songwriting. I didn't like Strapping Young Lad. I don't like Devon Townsend. I just don't like the style that he chooses to do.
City, I think, for me, is all time. I remember hearing that. I was like, this is 97, right, when metal had disappeared, basically.
Yeah.
It was like this one beacon on the horizon alongside of, Cradle of Filth and a few of the other bands that were around back then. But I haven't really got into any of his solo stuff at all. And he's a lovely fella, Devon.
Yeah.
Jeez, when you talk to him, he's very personable. It's like talking to a guy you've just met on a plane.
He's funny, charming.
He's just so easy to talk to. It's like he very giving of himself and stuff. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm certainly not an album that I'll check out the YouTube videos or whatever, and that'll probably do me. A band that I think we've spoken about a little bit, which is in neither of our wheelhouses, a bit like the Korn thing, Five Finger Death Punch. They've got one coming out.
Yeah. The whole hardcore scene kind of passes me by, man. I love rap and I love metal, but I haven't found a band that's success. I know one band to me that does it well, two, is Body Count and Rise of the North Star, which is a French band that combines hip hop with metal. And they still maintain a more metal side to both of those bands. And that's the only reason why I like them. Pure clash of the two, I haven't found a band that I think really does it well. And I don't think they really mix well.
Yep, I'm with you. Merciful Fate and King Diamond. I know they're not the same band, but very much related. Apparently, there's some new stuff on the horizon.
But they're both. He's doing projects for both bands, King Diamond.
Yeah, apparently. So I've without diving into the facts of the matter, apparently there's a record from both bands that's on the horizon, and they're due for release.
Man, King Diamond. This guy has a super unique voice. Super unique. It's like if you.
Do you like it though?
I love more of the Merciful Fate stuff. I think the songwriting there, especially what was the name of the album? Oh my God. I'm going to tell you right now. Melissa, you got me.
Yeah.
Melissa, that album was fantastic. The songwriting is great. And his voice is one of those things that grows on you.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, King Diamond, I got to say, it reminds me a bit of Ghost. Love the themes, love the fact that he's bringing Satan to the people, all the rest of it, and it's a bit subversive, but I can't listen to it for too long. I mean, Andy LaRocque's guitar playing, who was also recorded the Death album Symbolic, I think it was. Was it Symbolic or the one before it? Either way. I think, it's very small doses, and believe me, I have tried. It's very European sounding. Yeah, and some of my tastes do lean into more of the American stuff, and
I like you said, I like that gothic thing that he does with a lot of his music and music videos and the get up and the corpse paint. Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know how true this one is, but I haven't been keeping up to date, so it might be completely true. But apparently, Judas Priest, have a new album for 2022,
and I would assume it's their last.
I hope so. I mean, I think they're done, dude. Like it's.
I think the last album was great. Firepower is a great album. I believe so. But I know many of my friends who've mentioned the same feelings, like, you know what, like just end it there. End on a high note. Don't do what happened with like Slayer with the last couple albums. Like, what the fuck is this? And I love Slayer is like one of my favorite bands, but World Painted Blood is like an embarrassing album. It's like Saint Anger from Metallica. It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, they look, Slayer are different. I mean, as soon as you lose the bloke who writes your hits, you know what I mean?
Yeah, correct.
Jeff. I mean,
Jeff Hammett.
Yeah, Jeff is just. I mean, he's a patron saint of thrash metal, for God's sakes. You can't. He's irreplicable. Once he checked out. So he checked out years before he left the band.
He did all the best songwriting for Slayer.
Yeah, he did. I mean, listen to Rain in Blood, for God's sakes. It's it's a 10 out of 10 album. It's probably one of the only 10 out of 10 heavy metal albums ever. I don't even
I'll
think
tell
Rust in
you.
Peace is a 10 out of 10 album. I think that is, though.
I think Rust in Peace is a 10 out of 10, but I pick Seasons in the Abyss always. I love Rain and Blood. Seasons in the Abyss, for some reason, to me, always my favorite Slayer album.
I just can't get over how consistent that one album is. I mean, it doesn't need it. It feels like it's longer than what it is. It's only 30 minutes or something like that.
34 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, Rain in Blood. But I used to, when back in the day when I was still going to the gym and stuff, I just used to put that on, and that'd signify when it was time for me to go on the treadmill. You know, be doing weights or whatever. And once it finished, I'd done my 30 minutes or whatever. That's how I know how long it is, because it was perfect. And it's just that whole album, I wouldn't change a note or anything like that on it. And no, you're right. Rust in Peace is a 10 out of 10. I wouldn't take that away from Dave there.
Man, Marty Friedman's solos on that album are insane.
I've spoken to Marty about this thing. I mean, songs within songs within songs. You know, there's the solo, and then he takes the solo somewhere else, and then he brings it back, and it's like, I don't know how you do it, dude. You know, you are just made of different stuff. Yeah. You know, Fozzy, my mate's in Fozzy. Rich Ward, magnificent guitarist. It was in Stuck Mojo. Got a big soft spot for Stuck Mojo, got to say. They've got a new album coming out. Fozzy, of course, is the vehicle for Chris Jericho.
I tried a couple of songs. I wasn't on board. Again, it's kind of, to me, it's like Black Label Society. I kind of know what they're doing and in what vein they're doing and where they're coming from. Is just, nah.
Not your thing.
Not my thing.
I look, small doses again, a bit like Zach too, a bit like that with Black Label Society and Zach. But there's enough there for me to go, you know what, I want to see these guys live. Plus, I know a few of the guys that are mates with them, and I know they're stand-up guys as well. I like that when you know that people are like inclusive and, you know, hang on, let me shut this. The sun's just coming up here. For everybody who doesn't know, this is like, what's it, 6:15 in Australia at the moment, or Brisbane at the moment. So, wait a sec, I'll just move that over. Sorry, I know I'm interrupting the flow of things, but just so I wasn't coming right the way through. But North Lane, an Australian band from Melbourne, they've got a new one coming out. I've seen them live, but they're never going to be my thing, that sort of a band. James Labrie from Dream Theater has got a solo album coming out. God, that guy can sing. Anthrax, mate, apparently.
Not a big fan. Again, I've liked some of their albums. I definitely like some songs, but I was never a fan. For example, like Testament, fantastic. I think Testament should have been if we put one band there that's not on the list of the top 4, and they have to be 4, take Anthrax out and put Testament in there.
Yeah, I'd agree. Look, Anthrax are funny. I just don't get why they lost. I don't know, like, without knowing any of the interpersonal details outside of what I've read in the biographies and whatever bullshit's posted online, John Bush is all time. And I just can't understand why you'd swap out John Bush back for Joey Belladonna. Nothing against Joey at all, because, hey, I love Joey's solo albums.
Yeah.
You know, he's written some absolutely amazing solo albums that nobody knows about. But John Bush, for me, and Anthrax, they're like hand in glove.
He was much better.
Well, I just made it had balls.
I also like their vocalist that was an Armored Saint. I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, that's John Bush.
Yeah, John Bush. Yeah. John Bush, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't understand what happened, and I don't think John does either. From what he's talked about on Jamie Jasser's show, I just think it sort of came to an unnatural conclusion, and that was it. But I think, look, I don't know better, and I've spoken to Scott Ian before, and I got a bit of a funny vibe from him. And you know, I've spoken to hundreds at this point of these sorts of guys, and he's the one guy that I probably wouldn't elect to have a conversation with again if it came up.
Really?
One guy, there's a couple, and he didn't say anything bad. It just wasn't as pleasant it was, say, with his bandmate Frank Bello.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen at some point in time, right? Where it's just, I think a lot of times they expect you to be in line with certain questions. And from what I've gathered about your personality is just, you're going to ask the question that you want to ask. And that's how it should be. And then when they get that question, they don't know how to get past it. And they're emotionally affected by it. At least that's what it seems like in some interviews. They just get affected by it, and then they turn off. They're done.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. It was, I asked about Stomp 442, which I think is probably it's the album that I like the best from them. I'm not saying it's their best album. It's the album that I like the most from them. It's the only album from theirs that I still listen to. And I've listened to it consistently since it came out the day it did in 1995. And you just missed it. And I'm like, dude, come on. Give us some more than just to say, I think his words were, people can go back and listen to the episode. It's easily found. But I think he said something along the lines of, I haven't even thought about that album basically since it was released, and pretty much canned it. And I was like, dude, you wrote it. So, if you can't love it, nobody else can, I suppose. And I know artists can dismiss their work. I know, I just don't like it when they do. Rob did it. Rob Halford did it with the 2 Project. Ozzy's done it with The Ultimate Sin. Plenty of artists dismiss work that they've done. But I just wish they wouldn't do it, because I tend to like a lot of those albums. That's why I'm so grateful to Miller from Creator for not shit canning the work that they did in the 90s, because it is meaningful.
I gotta say, I was very surprised. I had a critique of Legion of the Damned that I did on one of my channels. And funny enough, the vocalist, I had a problem with the vocalist. I'm like, I don't know if I really dig the vocalist. Maybe I have to give it some time. I don't think he adds anything to the band, I said. And I ended up being wrong the more I listened to it. But on that particular reaction, that's what I said. And he took it like a champ. He was like, wow, that's interesting. I agree with you. I probably should have improved my vocals. I was like, did I just get a response from Legion of the Damned and he agreed with me? And it was nice. Such a nice vibe where he saw it wasn't ill, I didn't have ill intent. And it was more about, I like what I heard, but like this didn't capture me. Just an honest reaction without trying to create more views. And I think from that point on, as I checked out more stuff, I came back to him on a personal message and I told him, I actually changed my mind. I think I said I might have been a little too harsh because your vocals grew on me as the time went by. He's like, I really appreciate you reaching out and saying that.
I think you're good at that. You got a lot of integrity. You just say what you feel. And I think when you do that, you can't really lose. It doesn't mean people aren't going to disagree with you sometimes, very forcefully, but I think you survive every interaction. I think that's I try to do the same. Actually, I don't try. I do the same thing. And it doesn't mean you don't cop shit. We both read our comments on YouTube and on forums and stuff. I've even had a Reddit thread created about me, and you just think, Jesus Christ, guys, get over it. And it does affect you a little bit in the moment, but then you think, fuck, what do I care? I don't know what life these people lead if they're disagreeing with an opinion that I'm putting out there about the music I love.
Sometimes it has nothing to do with music.
Maybe some people got bad marriages. Some people want to be married, they're not married. Some people, you and I, dare I say it, man, I think we're very fortunate. But then we worked hard too. We've created a life for ourselves because we've had intent. And we carry ourselves in a way that I think allows us to do that. But some people they're just troll and shit post and, as I say, some of those Facebook forums I simply won't go onto because I read some of the comments that they're saying about my interviews that I've done with Cradle of Filth members and stuff, and I get about it. It's what Joe Rogan says: don't dive into the pit, stay out of it. I look at it and I think, that's enough for me because I know I'm going to start arguing back at some point. I don't have the time of the day. I've got 2 kids out here, that need my attention more so than some troll from God knows wherever the hell they're from.
I agree. And then I'm going to say it this way. How would you like to close out today's podcast in a sense from your hopes, your wishes for metal music in general for the year of 2022? If you have like some kind of general things that you would want to say.
The big one, I'm glad you asked the question. The big one is that I just really hope these COVID restrictions end so as though metal can tour again. Metal bands can tour again. I've said it so often on the podcast that it is our version of coming to the fire pit. You know what I'm saying? We all sort of gather around. It's our spiritual nourishment. It's the way in which we feel invigorated and alive again. Probably for you too, man, it's the last band I saw was Corrosion of Conformity. What a way to go out. But still, that's almost 2 years ago, January of 2020. It's too long, man. We need to see this music again. I'd love to see Blood Incantation in Australia touring. I know they're keen to come down. That's what I sincerely hope happens in 2022. Some element, and I don't want to say a new normal because I hate that term, some normalcy come back into our lives as we always let it. Let the bands tour again, whatever the protocols might be. I think some of those protocols are changing here in Australia where you can do rapid testing as opposed to that 5-day turnaround thing, which is going to make it so much easier for bands to tour again. I just miss the days of being able to go and it was the only outlet that I truly had was, I'm a busy guy, with kids, marriage, family, obviously working. going into the city, checking out a good band, having 5 or 6 pints, coming home, having a great night. I miss it. I want it to come back.
You hit the point right, like the nail on the head right away, because that's what I was going to say. Is I want the return of touring for our sake, fans, and more importantly for the band's sake, because that's their longevity. That's how they're going to survive. And if I want the music that I love to keep going the way it's been going strong, I want this kind of return. I mean, it's great what Behemoth and Epica and Powerwolf been doing with creating these really awesome live stream concerts for people to check out, but it's their bread and butter is concerts, and that's my most the best way I want to support the band is to go to their concerts, get their t-shirts, and be one of the fans in the mosh pits going crazy.
Absolutely, mate. Very well said. Yeah. Another killer conversation, mate. Thank you very much.
My friend, let you meet the new year well. You're going to meet it a little bit earlier than we are. All right. I now, all metal to the side, I wish for you and your family only the best in 2022, man.
Likewise, brother. Well, it's been fantastic. The how many episodes we've done? 4 or 5 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is.
Like a 5, I think so.
Long may we continue to do it, mate. As long as you want to do it, I'm cool to keep on doing it.
As a lot of Russians and Jews, we'd like to do a lot of blessings or toasts, and we always say to 120 episodes. So let's do it to like 120 episodes. When we get to 120, we'll come up with a new number.
There you go. I agree totally, mate. No worries. Thanks for that. Lovely seeing you.
Peace, man.